Okay, here we are, another month. And this is an October meeting for the San Diego Photoshop Users Group, or officially the Photoshop Users Group. We've got some great presentations today. We have Gavin Phillips, who is going to share some very interesting plugins that I think is going to be very, very helpful for photographers and artists. We've got Phil Steiger, who is going to share something I think has something to do with Dog Waffle, which is a great integration with Photoshop. And then I'm going to be giving you guys a presentation on the creative use of the pen tool. I'll start with the practical application of the pen tool, understanding how to, learning how to control it, its foundations, and then we kind of go into some creative stuff with it as well. So I'm excited, and we've got Gavin Phillips live with us right now. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and maximize the screen so that all you guys are seeing is Gavin's interface here. And Gavin, welcome to the Photoshop Users Group meeting. Go take it away. Just share with everybody who you are and what you're going to be showing.
Yep. Absolutely, will do. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that introduction. My name is Gavin Phillips. I've been teaching Photoshop for well in excess of 20 years. At the moment, I'm based in the UK, quite close to London, but I also have a good friend out there in California, Alan Mayer. So, have a lot of friends in the States. And what I'll be going through, a few different things with you guys today, different tools that are really helpful in Photoshop. What we'll be starting with is a plugin that I had created about 3 or 4 years ago. It's right here. I'm going to close it out for a second here just to show you how it loads into Photoshop. It's officially called, the name of it is Photo Books and Collages, but it's actually an extension. That's the exact terminology to describe this little plugin here, and it shows up once you've loaded it into Photoshop. It shows up here under Photo Books and Collages, and then it'll pop out here. I wanted to make something that automated and made it a lot easier to create custom page layouts. Okay, with a plugin that you can do it, of course, from scratch in Photoshop, but it's extremely time consuming. And some of the designs you'll see that it creates for you would be extremely difficult to do from scratch in Photoshop. So I've got a little video here of it, so we'll bring up the video, and this will kind of walk us through it. So to start off here, you've got different page sizes to choose from, or you can put in your own custom page size. So I'm just going to put in a 20 by 16 here. You can choose obviously any kind of background color. I normally go with white, unless you want to put a photo back there. You can even choose a gradient or an image. We'll use an image later, but I'll start by using just white. And then the next step is, what kind of layout do you want? Now, we've got 13 custom designs. So this one is the main rounded collage. Okay, so you've got a lot of different things that you can change here with the collage border, image spacing, and all that good stuff. And then you click apply, and it creates the openings for us. So the next thing is you just have to select your photos. And I normally use Bridge. So it's letting us know there that there's 4 openings, and I've got 4 images, and there we go. Boom. It's loaded the images into the openings for us. Now you can swap images around. So I'm going to swap those 2 images. I'm going to put the little family there in that image. So you've got a lot of different ways to, get it exactly the way you want it. Now, you could use this as a template. Okay, just use another 4 images, hit apply, and it's going to load those images into those spaces for you. As you can see, it's extremely quick. You just need to slightly reposition them sometimes. And then you could even rotate it or flip the canvas if you wanted the big opening at the top, and then just hit the apply button. And then, like I said, it's just tweaking the images to get them positioned the way you want them. So now I'm going to use an image as a background, okay? And we're going to make a custom layout. So we go to the layout. I'm going to use this time a rounded grid collage, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to create our own little custom layout, but using one of the designs to start, okay? So now I've got this, but I'm going to delete the 6 openings on the left. Get rid of those, and I'm going to have just the 3 openings on the right with the background image there. So we can see it's recognizing that there's actually only 3 openings. We just need to go and select different images. So I'm going to select our bride and groom here, and we refresh it. It needs 3 images. Click apply. It's going to put those 3 images in there, and just a little bit of a reset there. So this could be saved as a custom template of your own, right? Now we could put a different images in, 3 different images, and like I said, this could be your own custom template that you just reopen it, and it's literally a case of just then just populating it with photos. But as you can see, this is a lot faster than doing these kinds of things manually in Photoshop. Just dragging and dropping 3 photos in can take a couple of minutes. So I would save that as my own custom template. I could reopen it and repopulate it. So let's make a different one here. I'm going to do a 10 by 10 and use a white background color. Let's have a look here. You've got quite a lot of different variables here that you can use. So I created that, and I'm going to use the variable grid collage. Okay. I'm going to apply 4 different images, and like I said, I normally use Bridge for selecting the images. You can have open images as well, images that are already open in Photoshop. You can use those, but I normally use Bridge. So I'm going to swap the images here, swap these 2 around, which is quite a handy little feature there. And now, under Appearance, you can add a frame to it, which is kind of neat. If the frame's a bit too big, you can change the pixels there to 100, and if you want to add that appearance, you can. You don't have to, of course. But now I'm going to try something a bit different. We're going to do a sports image. I'm going to use this is great for like Little League, any kind of youth sports. So I'm going to put a baseball image back there, and now this 3D photo wall is really neat. I mean, it's quite a different design. They're kind of warped. You'll see it in a second here. You can actually change the angle of the warp. You can put image borders on there. You'll see it in a second here. So hit apply, and there we go. There's our 4 openings for our images. So I'm going to go now and pick up 4 baseball kids to load into the images here, load into the opening, should I say, and just hit apply. And as you can see, I mean, it's really fast. Obviously, it's all automated, and you can change. So I'm going to jump into the set here. So we need to reposition a couple of these images. Now, this software does come with movie tutorials showing you, all these bits and bobs. So it's updated, and the last thing is you've got a reflection on the bottom there, which you can increase or decrease in Photoshop depending on how much of the reflection you want. You can even double up the reflection, So there's a lot of cool ways to go. You can even add a label here, which has been automated as well. just makes things a bit faster. I'll put it up on the top and make it a bit smaller. I also use photo books and collages to make contact sheets or thumbnail sheets of images. It's really fast for doing that as well, of course. Only takes a minute or two, so it's a great tool. I've just lowered the opacity of the background there, and this is a neat effect with these. I don't know if you've seen this Polaroid collage type of effect. It's pretty neat. So with photo books, it's really fast. Just bring in the image, and you can duplicate these openings, these Polaroid openings, very simply, or you can delete them. It's entirely up to you, depending on the image, and then put their name in. It's just something a little bit different way to show an image, or it can help you to make up a quite a unique photo album, and that's the finished one there, the Polaroid layout. So I'll just go through a couple of others, just show you. I'm not going to use the actual, we'll just show a few images here. This is here with a baseball kid with a background image there. A great save the date. It's great for babies. All different kinds of designs you can come up with photo books and collages. If there's any questions on this, put them in the chat box there. Before we get on to the next bit of software, which is we've just come up with these mystical portraits, Photoshop actions, which are really neat. But if there's any questions, Stephen, I'll answer them. But otherwise, we'll just keep going.
Yeah, go ahead and keep going. There's no questions yet that I can see. Okay. Any questions, guys? Go ahead and type it into the chat box.
Yeah, just put them in there. So this is a new set of I've made probably hundreds of sets of actions over the years. This latest set just came out in August, Mystical Portraits, and you'll see here there's a lot of really nice images being created with this set of actions. We always give you ways to edit it. You can turn it off, of course. We can see the before and after there. Here's a different one, Yosemite. The action, like I said, there's we always leave all the layers available for you if you want to just reduce the opacity. The mystical portraits, this actual the mystical portraits here is kind of like a porcelain skin. It almost gives it kind of a painterly look. It's a really flattering look. You can, of course, remove any of it with a layer mask if you... And now I'm going to also add on top of that is a lilac action, which gives it this really nice tint. So we can kind of see the before and after here. It's very popular with high school kids, these kinds of looks. And there's the after. Let's jump into a different one here. I've been with this, these are the gradients. So what we're doing here is we're using gradients to kind of for color grading, okay? And you get all these custom gradients. They're really neat, as you can see. You can turn them on and off. With the baby here, similar kind of look. That's the original. Here's the after. So you receive all of that. Now, there is one other thing I'd just like to touch on here. We've got some pretty cool frames, custom framing actions, which you can add as part of the thing. So you can see the before and after there with that custom frame, which is included with the action set. So you've got a lot of creative ways to go with these mystical portraits. Here's a few examples of them with the framing. And with the effects applied to them. So now with this one, this is also part of the mystical portraits, but these are real fast. These are like subtle light and tints, and you can just run them and see which one you prefer. I've also got a vignette there, so I could just turn them on and off to see which of these I prefer very quickly. With the vignette, I use that a lot. It's just really convenient just to click a button and have a vignette which you can edit as needed. You can also change the opacity of the vignette if it's a little bit too strong. And as we can see, quite a big difference there with this portrait of this young lady. And of course, they work with CS6 through all of CC. Okay. All of this stuff works with, that's as far back as I go as CS6. I don't go any further back than that. And finally, I'll show you a few, we've just released these overlays. I'll jump into these overlays real quick. I'll just show you the demo movie we made because it'll give you a very fast. We've got 1,000 overlays here. As you know, these are just drag and drop. You just change the layer blending mode, or if they're PNGs, you don't have to change the layer blending mode. There's 24 sets, even Halloween, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with these. You basically, I'll show you how it works, but you drag and drop an overlay onto your image. They're all, most of them are pretty high resolution. They can be resized to any size image. Drag and drop it into the photo, and then change the layer blending mode to soft light or to multiply. And then I normally blur it a little bit, if you want the something like these, I'm thinking of the word, it's come to me in a second yet, but yeah, the bokeh, there you go. And now I just doubled it to cover up the image. That's the original image, and then here it is without bokeh. So, but with these, we've just come out with this set of 1,000 overlays about a couple of weeks ago. So they're really neat. There's a lot of things you can do with them. We've got, like I said, we've got Halloween. A ton of them. Even these sparklers, which are really neat for, and of course they work with any program that supports layers. That's Photoshop Elements as well. So do we have any questions about any of that? Because it's pretty much
Nope.
Covered.
Nope.
Pretty much all of it. Let me just minimize this. Hang on a second. We're offering a special deal to everybody for all of these plugins. I'll just bring up the deal real quick. So if anybody's interested in this, we're offering all of these for $45. That's the Photo Books and Collages plugin, the 1,000 overlays, and the mystical portraits, and it's all available here either at this this Bitly link, or from which it redirects from the Bitly link to the special deal page here to get it all for $45, which is probably about I think it's 85% off. So yeah, if there's any questions, let us know now, or you can email me, gavin@photoeffects.biz.
And I could would go type your email address into the Adobe Connect chat box.
Yeah, let me bring up the chat box. What I'll do is I'll also put in the shortened link here. Maybe they want to take a look at that.
Okay.
I'll throw that in there as well. And also my email. Oh, hang on a second. My email address, gavin@photoeffects.biz. Just make sure I haven't made any typos there.
All
Gavin
right.
@photoeffects.biz. There we go.
Cool. So for the photo effects link, I'm going to put directly into the chat box. What's weird is it's unusually quiet with questions. Usually people are chiming in all the time, asking questions.
Philip, yeah, I'll just jump in there. Philip Steiger was asking about where you get, royalty-free portraits and stuff. You guys probably have heard of Unsplash or Pixelbay. They're both free, and they are completely free to use images from those websites. They're royalty free and everything else free, as far as I know. Certainly Unsplashes, and the other one is Pixabay.
Okay.
So if you guys, if you want, to use for raw, and that's where I get nearly all of my images now. I used to use Shutterstock, but I'm pretty sure they are royalty free on Unsplash.
Okay.
I'm not. I think it's also. Yeah. Have you used them, Stephen?
I don't think
Unsplash?
so. I don't think I have.
You should look them up. They're really good. It's very, very good. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, very good for you guys. If we don't have any questions.
Yeah, so any questions are probably...
guess that...
Yeah, anybody has any questions, go ahead and type it into the chat box here. So far, it's no questions at all. It's. I think it's the users are usually are very used to using this type of workflow in Photoshop. So
Exactly.
so it's pretty straightforward.
And as I said, all of our products come with tutorial movies anyway. So if there was anything they were unfamiliar with, it's all covered in the movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Cool.
Alrighty.
So then,
good.
thank you so much, Gavin. Wonderful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful day.
Right, and then make sure you send me a link to this particular product. I'll send it out to the group. I know that the last time you were on, I had a few members, get back to me mentioning that they did purchase that for their purchase the plugins for their version of Photoshop. So there's definitely some excitement there. Okay,
Perfect.
Gavin, cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks a lot. You guys have a good one.
All right, so if you would do me a favor and stop sharing your screen, and then Philip, why don't you go ahead and share your screen?
Yeah. Alrighty. Let me see if I remember where to go to start sharing my screen. Can you hear me first of all?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly fine, but it's a button right smack dab of your interface, your Adobe Connect. There you go.
There you go. Share my screen. Yep. All right, hello everybody. Thank you very much, Steve, for having me here for a few minutes on short notice. And thank you, Mr. Phillips, a great name, I have to say. I like you for two reasons. The other one being in London also because we have a webinar tomorrow with a fellow that used to be in London. He just moved, I think, to Spain, but he is at Digital Art Live, and we have a webinar there tomorrow. There is a free section and there is a paid section, and we will be covering some of the things we're doing here in this quick intro. Hey, Steve, how much time do I have here?
Well, what much time do you need? So Gavin was pretty short. So I was giving Gavin an hour and a half. So then, and his was pretty short. So you've got about an hour.
I've got 20 minutes. Yeah. Oh, whoa. Okay. So this is a dry run for tomorrow, basically. We can do that. Let's see. I was expecting just 5 or 10 minutes to jump in, but I guess I could go in here and let me first talk about what's new. Right? The reason I'm here is to talk not about Photoshop, but a companion to Photoshop, or a companion to a number of other tools from Adobe, especially also those that deal with animation. And of course, you can do video and animated GIFs and other things in Photoshop really nicely. If you have an MP4 files and you need to extract frames from it, there's probably a great number of tools right there. I still use my good old QuickTime Pro on Windows to extract frames. But then what I'm really trying to do is to recreate stuff like this here. This is just a little animation created in Dog Waffle, where I'm trying to mimic what I see when I'm base jumping. Right? I have my wingsuit on, I go to the edge.
Okay, and Phil, you're assuming that everybody is watching this right now know what Dog Waffle is. You need to explain what Dog Waffle is.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm doing the top-down design here.
Okay.
Just showing the end result, and then I'm going to to go back to this little
cool.
presentation that shows how we do this, or why we do this, and how what was involved. So this is originally a paint program. It's not as sophisticated as Photoshop when it comes to layers. It has layers, but it does focus on a couple of other things. Perhaps the initial inspiration really for this tutorial coming up tomorrow, where we will show primarily what's new in Dog Waffle 14, also known as PD Howler version 2021. It's good to change the name. And you'll see a couple of different types of wingsuits and base jumpers. Some of them my crazy brother, my twin, of course. He is down there at the bottom filming them when they jump off, and we're doing some interesting, fun stuff with that. The inspiration with that also comes from music, especially when there's nobody out there. And this one, actually, towards the end of that video, that music video, there is in fact a place where you see, there, right here back there is where we filmed the other footage. So this is an area in Switzerland that I'm actually going to be at in about 2-3 weeks to revisit, and I'm a little bit familiar with this interesting wildlife. There's a lot of things to explore, and as an artist, whether you do photography or video or you paint or you sculpt, there's always something interesting to explore. So let's see what we do, and then let's step back. How did we do that, right? What is it that Dog Waffle does that allows you to create animations like these with some somewhat really realistic water, reflection, refraction, dispersion? There's even some caustics. Of course, you might always argue as to whether it's really that way in reality, but we have a couple of sky presets. You can load your own. You can put animated skies. Some of that is video footage, right? So some of it is not generated by the 3D side of the program, but the landscape is. This is a 3D landscape rendering part or a module. And what it does is take 2 images to generate this terrain. One image is the elevation map, and another image is the coloring you want on there. So if you have some slopes, you might have different stratified layers showing on that sediment deposits there. There's also some bump mapping. There is animations on the water plane. So cheap tricks, but excellent results, if you ask me. The only thing missing is maybe some trees. That's perhaps something for the future. We were at one point developing an upgrade to this module, and at one point we had some code in there to show some foliage. And we do a lot of foliage. It's a paint program with a lot of foliage brushes, so you can paint trees in a single brush stroke. And it follows your mouse, so you can do wind-blown grass and trees and bushes and that sort of things. So hopefully nobody's getting motion sick here and watch. Actually, I'm trying sometimes. I'm trying to induce some strange feelings in my stomach here. But the thing that I really like about this program is that it's fairly easy to actually create something like this once you get the idea of what is an elevation map, and other things optional, right? The coloring of it, it does some of it itself. There is a number of other things you add to it if you want to. So let's go and take a step back and simply look at maybe a quick intro for those who have never seen Dog Waffle. Project Dog Waffle, if you want to give it some respect. It's a program that doesn't show much. Okay, hold on a second. Maybe that's an omen. Okay, takes a little time to load. So we're talking about the new one, Howler 2021. And essentially, before that, of course, there was another one, 2020. It was also known as version 13. Before that, 2019. That one had some really nice, great new features. A lot of focus started there to add new brushes and big brushes. 2020 continued that, and especially then 2021 also. It's like constantly something else. But of course, there were earlier versions, and on the website you can find, well, where did it start? What is it? Who is creating this? No, it's not a team of many, many different programmers, although there are a few enthusiasts who have added some plugins or add-ons to that. If you want to learn about the legacy of waffling and howling, Dog Waffler and the Howling Fast PD Howler, you click on what's new in the website, and that's thebest3d.com. And it's very pretentious. When I got that domain, I figured maybe I should add a question mark to ask what is the best. And it's still an open question, and unfortunately they don't take question marks on domain names. So there it is. What you can do is you can learn about the many different versions that have been out there. For many years we've had code names for it. Some of them are funny and others I still don't know what they mean. But the guy who's creating this, Dan Ritchie, he's up north of Los Angeles and struggling like many other starving artists, but having this passion to create this ever since about 20 years ago, I first encountered it and found it to be very inspiring, even though it already was showing one thing it didn't have, and that's layers the way Adobe Photoshop users have come to use it. There's certainly a great number of things you can do with it, such as this image in the background. That's not a photograph, that's generated by Howler. And it's rendered on the GPU, so it's pretty darn fast. You can find earlier recent versions. Now it's version 14. We are currently, when I typed this last week, we were at build 50. We are now at 56. So we keep constantly adding, fixing, enhancing, and occasionally releasing those. I think the one that's currently shipping is number 50, build number 50 of the 2021 edition. There were some great versions before that. Version 11 is the last one you can see currently on Steam. So we had a little hiccup with a distributor. We are coming back. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to be, but if you are absolutely in need of having it and only on Steam, the wait is soon going to be over. It's worth the wait. We will, but of course you can also come to us for upgrades sideways at discounts and work with us that way directly. One thing that, of course, people want to know at this time, what's new in 2021, but also what was recently added in the 2020 edition, because there were quite a bit of developments towards April, May, June, where we actually kept enhancing the 2020 edition. It was not done by the end of last year. And some of these really continued to further evolve into 2021. So a couple of things that are noteworthy is that number 13 or number 2020 had introduced many new brushes, and particularly large brushes, right? But also brushes that allow you to quickly paint a whole carpet of foliage and grass and all sorts of weeds of large sizes, small ones. You can, of course, also have some sort of a gradient control the size of it, so that if you want something that looks like a perspective view, the gradient will make it farther, smaller, and closer, bigger. So there's a whole bunch of games you can play with the brushes. Then, especially the last few months, we had improvements for the undo functionality. There's the undo browser, but to show you recent images that you have in the undo stack. But you can also get to use them much faster now, because we added or improved the multi-threading. I think we only had 1 or 2 threads initially. And now it's at least 4, possibly even more. I just saw recently some further enhancements. So it's getting very responsive. Plus, everybody has faster and faster computers. The RAM is faster. That's the bottleneck for many of these things. And so it's much easier to work with larger images. Now, of course, some people have a different concept of what is a large image. Is 4K needed? Is 8K needed? And always that's still minuscule relative to what you do when you print a poster. And I remember the big one that I saw at the Moscone Center in, I think it was 1900 still, 1998 or 99, something like that. One of the last few years people thought for Apple when they were about to disappear. And then Microsoft injected 50 million of non-voting stock, still a great deal for them. And there was this big sign on the sidewall next to the Moscone Center in San Francisco, announcing that of the over 1,000 people who had predicted the demise of Apple, 997 were written on a Mac. And I'm not using a Mac, but I have to say that was really good advertising. That even when you write about your own death or somebody's death and saying that thing is dead, that thing is not going to work, you actually use it, and you have a tool there that you cannot do without. And that's something you'll find quite often. There is many times you have one program that does it all, and then there's a couple of little things, add-ons, plugins, other things that you want that will enhance your experience and make it a little bit easier to use. So new brushes in Howler made to more easily paint stuff like trees, bushes, foliage effects, and that sort of thing. So we've had that a lot already before. In fact, procedural brushes, meaning particle brushes. And so you do one brush stroke and it grows out with it and follows the mouse. It goes in the opposite direction. So you can do wind-blown or magnetic field-based interactions, and but these are brushes that are a little bit different and just adds to the whole experience. Another thing that was pretty important also is the memory stack. So there is a tool up here that's the memory stack, the undo memory in particular. So when you do that, you now have a nice preview. You can scroll through this. As you scroll through that, you see immediately the preview of it, and then you can also load it back in there. There's independently of that, there's of course also on the right side, you see a scrollable stack of stored images. So that's a concept we've had in Dogwaffle for a while, but not in this organized manner. It was a free-floating window for any time you stored an image. And it's basically a placeholder, right? When you store an image, you say, I might need this again, or let's keep it because maybe I'm not done with it. For instance, you see an elevation map, you see an erosion map, you see a texture color map, and maybe later you say, oh, I want to combine this erosion map even further into the elevation map, so I carve those canyons and rivers a little bit deeper. So it's good to have those. You don't have to put them into layers necessarily. You can have them sideways, but they used to be floating around. A second monitor was needed to keep this one clean of them. So we've organized them in a scrollable list fairly recently. I think it was actually in that version, 2020. So some other things. Oh, let's see if there was something else. Yeah, no, that's basically it. Some tools to like replace any of these directly into the current image and do a couple of other things. There were some new sprites added also. This is something specifically for what we call the particle modeler. So there's many plugins, filters. There's probably about 150 filters included, and some of them are, some people will say that they are kind of programs in their own right. But so it's something like, well, you sell this as part of it, not separate add-on, that's worth $99 to me right there. Like an image stabilizer for video clips, like motion prediction module. If you do that, even in After Effects, you didn't have that included in the past. I think it's there now, but for a while in many other programs, you see add-ons for that. So this program does a bunch of things, and it does have sprites now that you can see as part of the particle modeler. And the particle modeler is something you use to create clouds that are perhaps volumetric in appearance, volumetric clouds, but of course a lot of different types of clouds. You could have something handwritten there, some message that looks like you're flying an airplane through the air and dragging that cloud behind you. There is a great number of improvements also on just the quality of the ray tracing, or ray caster as we actually call it more technically. A lot of things that you do when you are not able to travel to these places, but you still want to have a visual, perhaps. That's how it saves me from going over budget with travel expenses. So noteworthies, some of the recent ones also included, again, more responsive when painting. Storing images no longer goes into your RAM. RAM is precious. Even if you have, let's say, 32 gigs of RAM, which I have here on this machine. But I'm running a 32-bit program, so technically it can only address up to 2, maybe 3 if it's large memory addressing at compile time. And maybe even more if some of the modules are actually running in their own address space, right? It's a server architecture, you can easily do that. But still, when you do a very large image or a very large video, it kind of sucks if you've used some of the memory for stuff you put aside. You store it, you put it aside, and so instead of keeping it in memory, we now put it on disk, and which has a nice side effect also, that you won't lose that image if for some reason you crash, or there's a power outage, or somebody steals your laptop right under your eyes. If you store it on your Dropbox or somewhere, you have the ability to recover the work that was stored so far. And there's a lot more also in version 2021 to work with the the stuff that you do so far. So in 2021, it's kind of difficult to highlight exactly, oh, those three things are the major ones, right? To me, it's like a constant evolution, constant, oh, let's add this, let's do this, this I don't like, let's change it, let's make it simpler. And so I've at times this summer, I had difficulty following as Dan is coding and releasing to the internal beta group. And sometimes I'm not quite sure that I really know where that is or what that is. There's a Polar designer that I remember working with in the past, but I couldn't show you right now where it is. There's a number of things here that are significant when you need them, right? For instance, if you do photographic restoration, and I've seen some of our customers recently do take some old pictures from the 1920s, 1930s, and so on, and turn them into from black and white to colorize. So they colorize them, but they also want to remove some blemishes, and so there's a couple of tools that we already had, some of them in experimental mode. And so if you're not into photography, what else is there? Well, there's a whole bunch of different things. There's some improved rotoscoping tool with the curve tool. We've had some tutorials on those. We have over 1,000 free videos on the YouTube channel, and then another couple of hundred on another older YouTube channel that is probably where you want to start if you are a historian and you want to see what was there in version 1.111b or something like that. So the biggest things in 2021 also includes the resizing of a brush. You have a brush image already and you want to make it bigger. It now allows you to easily just drag that slider to go 1,000 times bigger. Of course, you can still manually then do that again or further enhance it until you run out of memory. Simplified puppy ray. You see a screenshot here on the right side, and I'll go into that a little bit. So we used to have 2 tabs. There's just one now. I'm not sure that I like it. I like more options, but we simplified a few things, and who knows, the customers will tell us if there is something they really missed. There is at least one item, and the sun, you may want to see it or not, but independently of that, you may want to have the shadows cast or not, and that option is currently not there. So we'll see. There's always something else we can imagine adding there. There were some Lua scripting. It still is. We have a Lua scripting capability. That was actually one of the things I mentioned earlier. A few people have added code. I wrote 0.01% of it. There's one function I can show you that I wrote, and then implemented it, incorporated it into the program. So that's my little contribution of pride. But there are some others that have done much more, and one in Italy wrote a scripting interface for the Lua scripting capability that was actually inspired by the GIMP. So somebody in Iceland had written a plugin for the GIMP, and it's open source. Everybody can use it. Everybody can take it somewhere else, and that's what this Italian guy did, and say, hey, let's put it out there as a plugin for Dog Waffle. So you can go to his website and download it and add it to your Dog Waffle. And we actually include a version of it also in the product. And so it's a good way if you have some kids that want to code, that want to be game developers and programmers. Lua didn't start for gaming, but quickly became how even World of Warcraft and other games were distributed as patches. Lua was started in for the oil and gas industry in Brazil with Petrobras. They needed to go out in the field to do their detonations of dynamite sticks and record the seismic data. And they wanted to organize much of that data really quickly before they get back to the supercomputer to analyze it. And so it became, Lua was a scripting language strictly designed to be super fast, double precision, floating point, and the game industry took notice. Even Adobe, actually, one of their tools, depended heavily, was written with Lua. In fact, they were one of the major sponsors of Lua at one point. And I don't know if that's still the case. I mean, I've seen a lot of developments with JavaScript, with Python, and so on. But Lua is a great tool if you want to learn to, especially with something a little bit simplified in terms of what you can do, with the GIMP implementation there for the toolbar. So there is a couple of other things, and I want to make sure I'm not running out of time here. Hold on a second. I think I have my light going out.
Okay, so let's see. I've got a question from Jill Jord. I think it's pronounced. Yes, I see the volume needs to be turned up. You have mine on the highest setting. You can barely hear the speaker. Interesting. I wonder, is anybody else having that problem? Just out of curiosity. Here, what I'll
I
do
don't
is
know. Let me see if I can.
I will turn. Actually, my speaker volume's up as high. Can you adjust your speaker volume? Your adjust your volume higher. Go to Adobe Connect window and go to the right hand side of your speaker. How high do you have your speaker volume, Phil?
Oh, you're asking me. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if you were asking.
Yeah,
Okay,
go go.
so yeah, my
go
speaker volume is at the max as far as I know,
right,
but
go
the
go to.
microphone also.
Do,
Hold on
do,
a second.
hold on. No, do me a favor, Phil. Listen to me. Go to Adobe
Yeah,
Connect. Bring up the Adobe
yeah.
Connect.
No, that's where I am.
All right. So at the top of your Adobe Connect window, you see your adjust microphone volume. I'm looking at.
Hold on, let me go back.
Let's see if we can correct it a little bit here. All right. So your Adobe Connect window. It should be down in your
Yeah, I'm trying
taskbar
to.
somewhere. Then that's all YouTube. That's not Connect. It
Yeah,
should be in
yeah,
your
yeah,
taskbar.
yeah,
There it
yeah.
is.
I know I started it on the browser, but actually I connected from the. There it is. I connected from the. Well, I have it minimized, so let me go back to
Maximize it.
Connect Room. There you go.
All right. See the microphone volume? That's the speaker
Yeah. No, but
microphone.
it's
Okay, there we go.
no microphone is
No,
good and it's at the
hold on.
max.
Stop. Listen to me. Go to adjust volume. There we go. That's all the way up. Okay, that's all the way up. You're all the way up. Let's see. Let's see. Mackinson says, "Can we get the slide presentation?" Yes, you can. Absolutely. This is what I'm going to do. Phil, I'm going to turn up my gain on my microphone, and that should help. All right, I turned up my gain, so I should be coming in a heck of a lot louder now. Say something, Phil. Uh,
Can you confirm?
yeah,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Is it better?
It should be better,
Is it
everybody.
better now?
You guys got to type in there and let me know if this is better, because we can't
Hello?
read minds.
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
I can hear you fine,
1, 2,
Phil.
3, 4.
Phil, you're acting
Okay.
like you can't hear
Well,
me.
I can also keep the microphone really at my lips, but I don't want you to feel me, right? If I'm breathing into it.
Well, it should be.
So is this better?
Yeah, it should be better. Okay, good. So they can
Can you
hear.
still see? Is it still sharing? I think it's still
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah,
Right?
we're still
Can you still see
sharing.
my screen?
I'm in charge of sharing. You don't worry about that. So,
No, no. Okay,
I can
okay.
see you fine. All right. So
Good. So yeah. I'll be happy to send this presentation to after tomorrow, and I need to check
you're
also
welcome.
first with Paul at
Okay.
Digital Art Live. What I would recommend you do, in fact, is you go to Digital Art Live, and maybe this is the opportunity we've all been waiting for, right? If you want to see more, in fact, there is. Let me type it right in here.
All right. If you have a if you have a link,
Digitalart.com.
you can send me the slides and I can send it out to the user group afterwards, or you can
Yep.
type in the link
Yep.
here in the chat box, or
Yep.
and then I will
Yep,
send it
we'll
to
do that.
everybody else. Okay.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So let's finish with this part before we dive into the live. If I have another 10, 15 minutes, I
Yep.
don't know how much I've already burned. So you'll see, some odd ways to do landscapes. This picture in the lower left or lower right corner there is essentially done with the same tool that you would use for generating landscapes, but the elevation map is of a different nature. And there are a couple of tools external to Dog Waffle that you can use to easily create elevation maps like these, and then it's a matter of taking it into a program that can do something with it, such as rendering it as 3D, adding some nice lighting and shadows, reflections, indirect lighting, etc. So this one here, I would say this picture would basically speak to the fact that it is, after all, a paint program. Right? So if you like to paint, if you like to take a brush and create something from scratch, it has tools that you probably will appreciate. It's not so much the one you need if you need opaque layers. We do green screen, blue screen, compositing, magic pink, a couple of other tricks to do layered items. But we do also do layers for reasons of combining them, not keeping them opaque against each other. So you do a brush stroke that's pixel opaque. We don't do that so much. In a few cases we do. The most important thing is that we want to paint, and we have transparency effects between one layer of paint and another brush stroke. Not layer in the sense of a layer digital-wise, but in terms of one stroke over the next one. We do pigment lifting. So you can see as if it was still wet, or you do translucent watercolor, and it kind of picks it up and blends it again. So there's a couple of tools that go more into painting, others that go into the 3D rendering. We were looking at some of that here. One of the nice things that we've been all waiting for was really being able to use it a little bit more on the professional side, meaning you don't just go in one day and dabble with it for an hour and then you shut down and you lose everything. I mean, of course, you could render the image and save that. That's not lost. You could render the animation. That's not lost. But you couldn't in the past render all your parameters, save your parameters, all your settings, and you're not done. You want to continue the next day or next month, another project that you can take from this existing one. So now there are ways to say, well, all these settings I have, I like to save them, including the keyframes along the animation. So if you have a flight path already created, it's easy to get back to it next day and do another one with different settings, or find one of the keyframe positions and go somewhere else with it. One thing we did also is improve a lot of things on the brushes that we call anim brushes, or animated brushes. Right? These are made of not just a single brush image. Right? Everybody knows, or most people understand, a brush is usually a combination of some sort of a blobby image with some sort of parameters saying what to do with that, and the layer or image onto which it will be applied as you do your brush stroke. And that image may be a perfect circle, it might be something that's an image of some sort, or in this case, it could be an animated image, meaning an image sequence. And many times you'd like to create your own image sequences, maybe even from video. So if you have extracted a bunch of images in TIFF, PNG with transparency, you can load those into the brush now much more efficiently. And so if you don't have alpha, of course, you could save it as JPEG if you don't mind the lossiness. But it's either way, it's a tool that you can use to create your brushes. And one place where these brushes can actually also be animated is in the sky. You see doing the rendering in PuppyRay. So PuppyRay is the name of this module that does this rendering. Back to painting again. This one was actually in the end of 2020 edition and beginning of 2021, showing that yes, there's still a ton of focus on adding more features, interface-wise and capabilities, features for painting with foliage brushes. Right? So if you like to do something that looks a little bit pointillist, even though there's also a filter to just turn it into a pointillist, but you can also do brushes that will allow you to paint kind of in a mode like that. There's also paper texture that is revealed as you brush over that, kind of the same way as when you have a translucent watercolor or aquarelle, and you paint that over a sheet of paper, and then it starts revealing its texture as it gets wet and then dries up again. Right, so I think that's the quick intro that I'd like to show. And so perhaps what we can do is just dive into a couple of things. Again, I'm not too good at remembering every single thing that's really new. So to some extent, I'm joining your ranks if you're new to Dog Waffle, if you've not seen it before. It is a paint program. It has a couple of ways to change the layout. You could have a layout where the toolbar is on the left, on the right, or floating, and there's a sidebar also. It's hidden here, but I can click on this to see it. So there's a bunch of things that you are certainly going to expect in many paint programs that claim to be a paint program. There are tools to manage the image, including to make them seamless, enhance dynamic range, bunch of other things. One thing that we want to quite often do is start with something. Of course, there's already a brush. I can just paint with that. It supports tablets. It has a bunch of things to do with symmetrical painting, or doing things like, let's say you want to paint a face, but you want the left side to look a little bit different than the right half. So you could do a horizontal symmetry instead of the mirror. So what you're doing is not exactly a mirror copy on the other side. It might have, especially if you have some steps that are a little bit different. If there's some randomness to it too, you could say, okay, let's create a skull here, and you see it's not exactly identical left and right. So that can introduce a nice little aspect of, wait, who is this guy, right? The other thing that's noteworthy for painting, of course, is all the media, the brushes. Let's go back to normal mode here, and there's a couple of tools here. There's a brush tool. You right click, you see a lot of predefined brushes. There's also this media browser, which is pretty much the same thing. You can click it and you get a preview with those brushes. So here's organic effects. There's lots of others, different types. There are some stickers that are 3D rendered image collections from a friend in France. He makes actually real stickers from them. He creates them in one program, renders them in another, and then has an industrial flatbed cutter for self-sticking material. He produces them either himself or actually with some partners that are in the printing business. And so these are brushes that are based on images that he has created. And these are animated brushes. You can also get the individual images as PNG collections up to a certain size. Beyond a certain size, you'll want to contact him if you need something for a big poster print, for instance. But you're certainly welcome to use these as part of your creative artwork. You cannot resell them, but you can use them and, of course, hopefully make some money to pay the bills with what you're doing. So here are some brushes. I don't even know half of these. Some of these are things that are sometimes contributed by our beta testers. Sometimes it's just some new stuff.
Wow, that's very cool.
About. And what I'd like to do is just show 2 or 3 of those brushes that are in the organic collection. So these are brushes that are, in fact, let me make sure it stays there. So I'm going to pin it down. Maybe make it bigger icons or smaller.
So the interface is very similar, Phil. So the interface is very similar to Photoshop in a way.
It has evolved a lot. Yeah, this used to be the the comment we see. Oh, that's a weird interface, and you can still configure it and make it weird if you absolutely must. But yeah, we've looked at a few things that are commonly used in various programs, and Dan thought that this would be a good idea. That would help, and so there's a couple of things that. That will make it easier, or somewhat, quite easy to jump in and start painting with it. If you're familiar with some of the things you see here. So here are some brushes that make a nice little illustration. If, let's say, you're a webmaster and you need to have something that's kind of peaceful, you have a great number of tools, and then of course you may want to change the hue and the color and so on. So there's some flowers. Well, they are flowers, but it's probably a matter of black and white. So let me turn 2 different colors here. So these are mostly image-based brushes. There is also a whole collection of particle brushes. You see particles. These were the first generation of very simple particle brushes. There's just one particle family, if you will. They shoot out and then they die. But there's a lot of different ways to make them die, and dance around before they do, or do a lot of reactive movement, like going in the same direction and keep going, or going in the opposite direction if you like something windblown. So there's a lot of these were our fancy winter brushes. Not so fancy anymore when you look at some of the other stuff we've done since then, but yeah, these go back to even the free version 1.2 or something like that. The more sophisticated ones are Bristle Brushes, and you can see them here in the brush settings, particles. But here you can pin this down. There's 4 categories of brush, of particle brushes. The ones we just saw here were those. So there's plenty of things you can do with just that. You could write your name, or you pin it there, your initials in a fancy way. I'm not a piece of shit, but these are my initials. POS. Philipp Otto Steiger. The other thing you can do particle-wise is there are orbitals, and these are orbiting around your mouse. So actually, no, orbitals are here. Bristle brushes. These are bristles that will look a little bit more like bristles, and there's lots of presets for that too. Orbital brushes, one of my favorites. I've always wanted to be an astronaut, so now I can do two things here. And you can have basically orbiting particles around your hotspot, right? So as you move around, you see a whole swarm of them. You can control how many of them, how big they are, and where in what orbit they are, like circular orbit or a little an oval or something. So it has a lot of different use cases. And there are some brushes here that will do some wacky things that we don't really see a need for. Let me go and erase this to black. So you might see some interesting things with it. Some of these brushes even respond to, of course, the pressure on the mouse or the speed, pressure on the tablet or the speed, but also to audio. There's one or two with input from the microphone or from the line. So you can, and I forget which one it is, but there's some feedback. There it is. There's one. So as I'm speaking, as I'm speaking and now go louder, you see the size of the blobs get a little bit bigger. And you know, if you're into Wagner music, you probably get a kick out of that.
Now that's interesting
to contribute to what you're doing visually.
Phil, that's interesting because I have never seen any paint program integrate voice activated parameters to their paint program. Now that's totally new.
Yeah. Hey, say something.
Okay, so hey everybody, welcome to the Photoshop Users Group meeting today. So, wait, this is still working? Let me do it again. Yep. Okay, welcome to the Photoshop Users Group meeting featuring.
Hold on. I need to prep for that.
Okay, very good.
Out a little bit. Okay, sorry.
Okay, very good.
All
right. So,
say something.
Welcome to the Photoshop Users Group meeting, and welcome Mandala for just joining us in. And so I'll talk really low, like really low, and then talk really high like this, and see what happens. That's very interesting. That's cool. So you can create to music, I guess. So Mandala Miss.
Yeah, and I have not explored. And I have not explored this that much, so the moment Mandala came in, we may just have crashed here. So I don't know.
So Mandala says
I went a little bit overboard with the.
So Mandala says that Corel Painter has had voice activated brushes for about 3 years now. I did not know that. And he also mentions that it's an expression like rotation. Interesting. But who uses Painter anymore? Just kidding.
Yeah. It's still there. Yeah. No, I'm not surprised that they do have it because showing up in Corel 2-3 years after we did. So, and I don't know in this particular case if they did it before us, but we certainly have a number of times observed. Oh, look, they have our type of particles. Oh, look, they have our type of trees. Oh, look, they, but nothing wrong with that. We don't copyright it. We don't trademark it. One thing I wanted to show you since we crashed, you have the ability to restore the current image. There's a couple of other things. You can go into the temp folder where things are stored, so you may find an image or a video or something that you didn't save properly. If you're on a slow GPU, you might want to disable it. That's not the case in my case here. But yeah, anyway, there's perhaps one more particle brush for those who haven't seen it that is interesting. Also, it's called the Foliage Brushes. So there's lots of different evergreens and lots of different type of grass painters, and so they may do like individual things. They also add, you see here, when I first draw it, it's kind of plain color, and then when I let go of the mouse, it does a little bit of post-processing, so self-shading, basically, ambient occlusion-based self-shading. So that adds a lot of capabilities for 3D look or depth, right? So you have some presets of very different types of brushes. Single brush. Yeah, doing a single brush stroke, and you see it follows the mouse, or you can have gravity take over a little bit more. There's all sorts of parameters here. So if you want to have a single whole bush of these with basically the same family of trees, it gets darker and darker.
Oh, that's cool.
This is a 3D brush. It's actually drawing these in 3D depth. We're not allowing you to rotate them yet, but we have the data passed out in 3D.
Right. Samaran, the audio is coming through clear here. It could be your bandwidth, so keep that in mind. You can try refreshing
the
Twitch.
recording will be good though. Yeah.
The recording will be good, yeah, but it's coming. You're coming through fine here, so it may be a bandwidth issue.
Cool. So let's go into the other thing I wanted to show. There are two things that we'll be talking tomorrow in more depth, which is the at the webinar with Digital Art Live. And for that, I will resize this to a square shape, resample it to, let's say, without the lock at 1024. Or in interest of time, I'll make it a little bit smaller. Let's lock it now and say 512. And, I didn't remember that, so 512. There you go. And so what I'm going to do is use this not as an image. I'm going to store it. There's a little click for that, so I can get back to that. But I'm going to turn this into an elevation map. So you can basically think of it as something like a grayscale image. In fact, you can visualize that by actually turn it into a grayscale image of some sort. You can store that if you think that's even better. And then turn this into 3D and basically use it as 3D. Right? I'm not talking about embossing it. Of course, we do a bunch of these too. But there is a transform filter for the 3D designer to take this image and say wherever it's bright, it's going to be high elevation. Wherever it's dark, it's going to be low elevation. So we probably should do the opposite of that. Let's go invert the image. Invert it. And now, using the 3D designer, you see that basically coming out of hiding in a way. So that could be the start of a landscape. We could do a few more things there to add perhaps some erosion. There's an erosion filter. There's some sediments. You can add a little bit of snow sediment filling in there. And then also create a texture, a color map. So normally it's just a single color, whatever the primary color or the secondary color is. And then there is, you can get that from the image itself. So the image that's a grayscale is providing that. Or you could have an image in the background as a secondary image from the swap buffer. Right now we don't have anything there. So what we'll do is we'll create that, and we'll create it based on the elevation and the slope. So we can have something like snow caps, and we can have some green fields of gray. There's a couple of different things. So maybe make it a little bit brighter. Change the light here. So just so we can get a better idea. It's not actually what we'll keep in the end, but this is sort of the starting point, and then we can say, let's go store the height map.
So just
also store
now, just for everybody who's just jumping in currently, what Phil Steiger is showing is a program called Dog Waffle, which is a great integration with Photoshop. We're going to be doing the full Photoshop pen tool and he's got 5 minutes left here. We'll take a 15-minute break, and then we'll do the Photoshop pen tool presentation. But for those who are just jumping in, that's what we're doing.
So 5 minutes, is that what I have left?
5 minutes is what you got left.
So we have another image here. That's the height map. It could be with much more data. In fact, I could do something like inverting or subtracting the elevation map to add a little bit more darkening in those valleys, right? So you can because when you go to Northern California and you see those canyons along the ocean, and some of them have actually foliage and trees growing in there, but for the most part it's dry land. It's darker when some vegetation lives there, right? So you could kind of mimic that simply by subtracting some of that. Not that much necessarily, but just a little bit additional darkening in those regions that are lower elevation. The elevation map indicates how low or how high it is, and the coloring is something that can go hand in hand with that or be completely independent. You could have two images that are completely independent. In fact, let's do that by adding something completely out of range or not related to the actual elevation of those pixels. For instance, if you render a grid on top of that or some pattern. Oops, that's not the one I had in mind. Let's do filter, render, grid. So we have a grid pattern laid on top of that. And if I do now go to the 3D designer, or even better, the Copyright, which is where I want to go for the rendering, you'll see that as I'm going with a little bit better quality you'll see some coloring of those green lines. Maybe I need to look around on the left, maybe disable the anti-aliasing for my initial. So here you see those green lines, and I might do perhaps final render. So that one's doing about 50 passes. I might want to go with slightly more parameters, more fine detail. This does not really look like the terrain I wanted to actually do. So let me start with just a plain plasma noise and go out of that, and then do another one. Also plasma noise, so I do a render plasma noise, but this time in a different mode. Instead of opaque that replaces it, I'm going to do a difference. And when I do that, I often get some canyons. You see the dark canyon or river areas here, and that makes for a more interesting elevation map to do a base jump from. So if I expand the dynamic range and now have an image I probably want to use, and I might also use that directly with the styling to say, let's calculate the slope shading. So here is again something like with some shading, perhaps adding some coloration based on the elevation and the slopes. And that I'm going to store, and actually I'm going to store it in the swap image. And there it is. So now I'm going to go back to the front. It's like the front of your canvas, right? You can turn it.
So I've got a question, Phil. I've got a question. Will this take Google map data to make elevations?
Not in its native format, KRM or whatever that is. If you have a grayscale image, yes, 8-bit. I don't know that we can load a 16-bit elevation map directly. Natively, we convert it anyway, so you might as well convert it first, and you control what it is that's converting. 8-bit grayscale image, yeah, you can take that and then do your rendering from that. Exactly.
Okay.
So here I'm going to make this seamless. So that we can use that a little bit more easily with the puppy ray. Of course, I need the seamless also on the elevation map, so don't forget that. Seamless, there it is. And so now I have something that I might still do some erosion. I didn't do erosion on this one, so again, styling, there's an erosion calculation. Just store that. And once you've stored it, you can then go back to the prior image with undo, wherever that is, there it is, and then subtract the erosion. Right? The rivers that you have here, these canyons, these creeks, whatever got eroded out, is what you want to subtract, take away from the current elevation. So easily simply do a combine subtract, and maybe not that deep a canyon carved out, so you can adjust with the interactive undo, do a little bit more. You can of course also blur or diffuse, do a light diffusion, dark diffusion, so that it looks more like wider valleys than deep, steep cuts. But now you have essentially something you could go even do an animation from. Let's create an animation from this with 123 frames. So that'll be about 4 or 5 seconds if you play it at 30 seconds, 30 frames a second. And then go to the transform filter. So I'm going to just do a very quick one here, Puppy Ray GPU. And I'm using a 2080 here, fairly high-end graphics card, but that was last year. But now it's no longer the latest. But you can see that we can go through this canyon. We have a water plane. We can move the terrain up against that. And so if you don't want the water, you can also hide it altogether. You can make it a little bit steeper, or lower elevation. You can make the sun move in a direction that you will see
very cool.
Reflect, or be farther down there, do a sunset. Let's see the wide angle there, you see it. You can change the skies. There's a bunch of presets, with some of them having some interesting things in the sky. And of course, you can load your own image as the sky. You simply need a custom brush. The brush image is what becomes your sky.
Okay,
so here I'm going to
I got a
finish it with the final render.
All right, quick question for you because we're running out of time.
Yeah. Yep.
Can this be exported as an OBJ so that we can bring it into Photoshop's 3D environment?
Yes, not from this module. That's the rendering module here.
Okay.
But the one earlier, the 3D Designer, has an Obj Export.
Got
Not
it.
the one I recommend because OBJ files are extremely wide and big, but you can, and it will store the UV address on the vertices. The better way to do it is actually in Photoshop to recreate the elevation map.
Yeah.
Right, you have the map. That's the thing that holds the information of every single picture element or terrain element. And in Photoshop, you can also load that grayscale image. This will simply allow you to create a really interesting grayscale image a little bit faster.
Okay. All right, so that's all we have time for. This is fantastic.
I need to start the
well,
animation,
it's interesting.
then you can go.
It's
Hold on,
interesting.
let me do that.
It's interesting because you can
Give me
see
30 seconds, 20.
Yeah, but
All
you,
right, so here I am.
yeah,
And
but
then I'm going to go here and just move in here.
yeah.
And I'm going to land here, keyframe it. So now we have a keyframe animation and set it to anti-alias and render. So now it's rendering every frame in there, and you can save that as an MP4 or as a WMV, I think, also an AVI image sequence and so on.
Very, very cool. All right.
Thank you.
Well, I tell you what. Let's see. Would you type into here for me the link where people can go purchase this product?
Yes. So in the chat
In
from
the chat
Adobe
box.
Connect.
Yeah, in Adobe Connect, and then I'll put it into Twitch.
Yep. So thebest3d.com.
Yeah, I'm going
right
to type.
in the front page
Got
announces what's happening in October.
Great.
There is a 25-ish or so discount for everybody. And then there is a 30-something, 35%, I think, discount for those who go to the free webinar tomorrow with Digital Art Live. And there's the 55% for those who take the paid premium level of that same webinar. So you have a choice there. Pay a little bit more, get much more. You get additional tutorial that we will do live tomorrow. And you will also get that super discount on PD Howler 2021.
All right. Phil, thank you very much. That was fantastic. We have to come back for the user group, not the user group meeting, but not the Photoshop user group meeting, but the Lightwave users group meeting. Those guys will definitely utilize this quite a bit. All right, so guys, this is what we're going to do. Photoshop presentations coming up next on the Pen Tool Magic. And we are going to take a 15-minute break, and then we will come back and start our presentation, okay? All right, so there we go. I'm going to pause the recording on here.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
You're most welcome. Thank you, Phil. It's fantastic. All right, I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, got sound now? Everybody can hear me? Great. So I should be coming in loud and clear. Just say yes if you can hear me. Okay, this is scaring me. No one's responding. I'm not seeing anything in the chat box, I don't think. Or am I? Oh, there we go. Good, 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 good. Yes, there we go. All right, that was scaring me there for a second. Okay, welcome everybody. You did not hear me, so I want to say welcome to A10, Buster66, Commander Root, Curtis Rhodes, welcome. Samaran, welcome. Cynthia Anna, welcome. Essence, welcome as usual. Great to see you. Feet, First Killer, get affiliated now. Hell 60, IB Wizard. IB Wizard is David Good. He's my co-manager for the Photoshop site on Facebook. Jojo, welcome. Judy McLean, hey, welcome. Kai Daily Assassin, welcome. Lurks X or Lurks, Mackinsense, welcome. Mandala, welcome. Remestino, welcome. Saddest Kitty, everybody knows kitties are not sad. Kitties are prima donnas or they're demanding, but they're never sad. Just saying. Welcome. Scum TV, welcome. Sunflower 308, welcome. Virgopros, welcome. Oh, cool. All right. So, hey, yes. Hi, Judy. Ivy Wizard says, I'm awake. Good. Ouch, my eardrums. Why, am I too loud for everybody? Am I being a little bit too loud or something? Am I coming through fine? Okay. Cool. All right, let me turn on my camera here. That was something I forgot to do. Let's get Philip off and let's get Gavin off too. Let's go find my device. Is that it there? Video capture. Yep, there I am. Cool. All right. Welcome. All right. So let's go have some fun. I'll keep an eye on the chat box here every so often, and let's get into the pen tool magic. So what I consider one of the most least understood tools in Photoshop is this pen tool here. So if you're inside Photoshop, you hit the P key on your keyboard. P as in Paul or pen, and that will take you to the tool here. If you click and hold on the tool, you will see there are other styles of pen tools listed underneath here. We'll talk about probably all of these. But more importantly, I want you to get a practical understanding, as well as to see a practical application of the pen tool. I'm not too loud, George says. Okay, good, fantastic. Okay, so I'm coming through just fine. So now, here's where it gets fun. I don't know how many of you actually understand the pen tool, how often you utilize it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the foundations of using the pen tool, and then we're going to go back into applying it practically. What you learned today, and you're going to learn how to use a pen tool within a few minutes here. It's not hard, but yet it's one of the most feared tools by photographers and artists. Very few people use it. And there's no reason for it. It's very easy to understand. So I'm going to kind of explain it, give some foundations as to where it comes from a traditional sense, and then how to use it in Photoshop practically. Okay, cool. All right, here we go. Let's go into the bridge real quick. Get in the Photoshop over here. Command or Control Option O. All right. There you go. This is the traditional pen tool. Remember these? They're called French curves. And remember all the different styles of French curves you can buy. You can buy them in packs of 10 or 5, and each one has a different shape and all that. And what you would do is you would use this in drafting, design, or drawing to basically draw your curves, to connect dots, to connect the lines. And here's another one there, another version of it, and there's so many different versions of these things. So you just kind of go and you get a pack of 10 or something, and it will pretty much, support you in practically any drawing that you're doing. Okay, particularly if you're doing drafting and design. My original major was drafting and architecture, where we have to learn how to use all the all the curves and the drafting boards and create elevation maps and understand perspective, creating the horizon line and vanishing points and perspective lines. We had to draw all that stuff out, which is actually still used in art practically today in the real world, in the commercial world, all those concepts. So here is a practical application of using the French curves. An artist here where he's actually connecting curves. So what we're doing here is we're not relying on human skill, right? Your mechanical skill, unless you're really good at it. We're using an asset to assist us in creating these curves. Okay, in a traditional world. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a foundation of how to apply the curves digitally in Photoshop. All right, let's go back into Photoshop. Command and Control Shift and O is the toggle toggling between Photoshop and Bridge. All right, Command 0. We're going to go to full screen. Hit the F key to go to full screen here to get rid of all of the stuff up there, so we can just focus on our design. So I'm going to give you a little bit of foundation of the utilization and the application of the tool. And then we're going to go into a photographic situation or more of a creative situation and show you how it's used practically. Okay. So Obj Wizard says had curves, but for creating flow charts when programming. Yeah, and they are used for that as well. But primarily for art design drafting, specifically. Okay, let's. I have several layers here. All of these layers are vector shapes that I just did some custom creation. I'm going to start with. I'm not even going to do the rectangles. I really want to speed this up a little bit. So let's start with this one here, which is the straight edge curve. Okay. So the whole idea of the pen tool is to create French curves, right? So if I lay a point down and lay another point down, it creates a line that will join those 2 points. If I click and hold and drag, it creates my curves. If I click and hold and drag in the opposite direction, it creates a curve in the opposite direction. How do I know which direction the curve is going to go in? If you look at the handlebar right here, let's go ahead and zoom in a little closer. If we look at the handlebar, the direction of the last handlebar, wherever that's pointing toward is where that curve is going to be looping toward. So with this handlebar selected, if I want to come back here to modify any of these curves, we're going to use this direct selection tool. It's right beneath my pen tool, and there are 2 options, the path select and the direct select. If I target the path select, it does only one thing, really simple. It takes the whole path and moves it around as one complete shape. You cannot go in and edit those points or select the individual handlebar or point. The whole path is activated. So this is basically the move tool for paths, right? So if I want to edit individual points, I want to edit the handlebars independently. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the direct selection tool. Inside the same spot, your shortcut is A. Okay, so once I'm inside, I can drag around and select individual points. The way you select individual points, one of 2 ways. I can actually click on it physically, or click and drag and draw a little bit of a selection box around it. Your choice. Okay. With these handlebars, I can give it more slack by pulling it out, or take up the slack by pushing it in closer to its base point. Okay, right? So, all right. So I can also, change the direction by rotating the handlebar, and it's going to be rotating around its point there. Okay. All right. So let's now that you have a little bit of understanding as to what happens to the line when we play with the handlebars, let's kind of show you how to apply a practical shape. I'm going to delete key on the keyboard and just delete the whole shape. Command 0, pull everything to full view. I'm in my pen. I'm going to hit the P key once again for the pen tool. I'm going to outline this shape. This shape is made up of straight lines. If it's made up of straight lines, all you want to do is click and release. That is it. Not click and drag. No fancy stuff. Click and release, and that is it. So I'm looking at this shape. It's all straight lines. Click and release. Click and release. I'm going to the apex of all these little, where the points join, right? And place a point. Click and release. Click and release until I actually going to complete an outlining of the entire shape. Now, once I'm practically done, spacebar and control held together is going to allow me to zoom in. I need to close this curve. All right, so if I take my pen and place it on the point where I began, you'll notice that little circle right down there. I'm going to click it, and that's going to close my path. Oops, what did I do? Let's go undo. All right, I'm gonna come. I want to. There we go. It's closed. That is closed. All right. Now, once it's closed, we need to use what tool to edit our points? Direct selection tool, right? So right below the pen tool, grab the direct selection tool, and I can drag over it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to align my shape perfectly. I want my path. And that's what this is now. What I've effectively done was created a path. All right. How do I know that? Because over on your, take a look over here on your layers panel. If I come over to the path panel, there's my path. In fact, let's disconnect this. Pull that on out so they're right next to each other. Right. Here is my path. Right. I just created. So what I'm doing now is I'm modifying the path using a direct selection tool. Grab the points, because now these become like points on a rubber band or a string, right? Everything stays connected, and I'm just going to reshape this or outline it accurately, or more accurately than what I did from the very beginning, to ensure that this shape is going to represent the shape that I'm trying to cut out or select, and so forth. So the key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections, masks, and channels are exactly the same thing. The path is not a selection. The path tool creates highly sophisticated shapes from which you can create a selection. Okay? A selection or mask. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections and masks are exactly the same thing. All right, so notice that up here in my toolbar, when I targeted the pen tool, I'm going to do it again. I just selected it. Notice that on my option bar here, I have the path selected, the path option selected. By the way, if anybody has any questions, stop me anytime and type in the chat box. I like that dialogue going there. Once I'm using just the pure path here, we'll get into shapes in just a little bit. But with the pure path selected, there it is. Okay, I was able to alter it. All right, now let's go to something a little bit more sophisticated. Command 0, bring it down to full view here. And it will be in your panel. Now we can double click this one and save it under another name. I'll just call it path 1 and click OK. Okay. This way it ensures that when you save your document and reopen it, the path will always be there. That's a little extra step I always include in there. Now let's go to back to layers. This time let's go grab something like the circle here, and let's turn off this one there. If I want to get rid of my path, go back to the path panel right over here, this little dark gray area in the bottom, right? Just click it and it'll go away, right? So now we're looking at a circle, and I'm going to go back up here to my blank layer, and I'm going to outline the circle. Now, this is going to give you an introduction to actually making the curves themselves. Now, you probably had instructors that probably gave you guys really sophisticated instructions. Let's see if I can find that here. And it should be a PDF file. I don't know why it's not here. I did put it in here. In fact, I tell you what, let's go over to, let's go online. And I'm going to show it to you this way. Okay, let me come over here to my Opera browser. There we go. All right, path. Let's see, vector paths. That I saw some. Let's go to images. All right, and I saw a nice little document on here that explains. In fact, let's do this. Let's call Illustrator paths, because once you learn paths in Photoshop, path patterns. Once you learn paths in Photoshop, you'll understand it well in Adobe Illustrator. Okay? And I'm not finding the document. Oh gosh, I'm gonna kick myself in the head here, because I swore I transferred that document on over. All right. Well, anyways, we'll do without it. We'll come back to it. Let's go back into Photoshop real quick, and let's go talk about this. Now, this is the way I teach it. Now, this is where I'm going to introduce you to the Convert Point tool. If you go back to your pen tool, click and hold on it, Convert Point tool. Now, so far we've been playing around with straight lines, straight lines in between all of your points. That's water. What I'm going to do is, right, so what I'm going to do is go to my pen tool, and some instructors will probably teach you this way. They may have you put a point here. They'll they'll quarter up the circle, perfect circle. They'll put a single point, another point down on the next quarter, and then click and drag and give you an understanding in terms of how to create the curves as you're drawing. Okay, and that's fine. But I want to introduce to you the Convert Point tool. This is because it's important. What I do when I teach is I have you put down 4 points. Click and release, click and release, click and release on where the guides intersect the circle, and then close, so we have a diamond, right? So now we have a diamond. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to the pen tool, come down to the Convert Point tool, and if I get in closer, let's kind of zoom in a little bit. Let's pull this on down, and you can see I'm creating another work path right down here in the paths palette. If I put my cursor right over the point, it becomes the Convert Point tool. So if I click and hold and drag it, and take note that I'm not doing this or this, taking the handlebars diagonally, right? I'm keeping it parallel to the top to the top frame of my document. It's completely parallel to my document, and I'm going to bring it out about so far. Take note that I'm probably off a little bit here. If I want the shortcut to go into the not the Convert Point tool, but the Direct Select tool, is Command or Control. Hold it down on your keyboard grab that point, and then you can take it and just place it right on the circle where it should be. And you can also come over here and adjust the handlebars so that they should be as parallel as you can make it. That's about as far as I want to go. Now, let's pull it back down, go to the bottom, right? Now, take note. I dragged it to the right to create my curve, the handlebar. All this tool does is take a curve and change it to a straight line, or take a straight line and change it to a curve. That's all it does. So if I take the tool, the convert point tool, and click on this node there, it gets rid of the lines. It gets rid of my handlebars, and it turns it right back into a diamond. Okay, so come back, drag it, go to the opposite side, but this time drag in the opposite direction, but try to line it up. We have two sides here to deal with. Go to the right, click and drag it to bring it downward to kind of match the edges of the circle. Go to the opposite side and drag it in the opposite direction, and that starts to create a curve. And then what we do from here is we go hit the A key to go to my direct selection tool there, right? And I can come in here and mess with the curves until I get this all aligned up accurately. If I want to break the tangent here, in other words, there are two different handlebars, one on the right and one on the left. Currently, they're connected. If I want to break them, again, that is what the convert point tool will also do. So it not only changes a straight line to a curve or vice versa, it's also going to break these, so now I can just deal with one side. And I can align one side exactly the way it should be. Click on this one here, break this tangent, get it just perfect, break this tangent just perfect, and then do the same thing here and break that side. Is that making sense? Okay. All right. So now that we have that down, let's go to something practical. It is one of the most precise tools that you have in Photoshop to make selections. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections, channels, and masks are all the same thing. The foundations of all my workshops that I teach. The foundations of understanding Photoshop. So let's close this one out. Or actually, let's not close it out. Let's do one more exercise. Then we'll go to something practical, okay? Let's turn this one on. And let's turn off the circle. And let's go to my path palette. Click the gray area to turn off the path. Now, I'm going to teach you an artist's way of working with the pen tool. I'm using the walking pen, right? I find this makes your job so much more easier. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out my shape very quickly. So, now Jason Mandala says, those broken basic curves break the perfection of the circle. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. But bear with me. I'm going to hit the P key for the pen tool. I'm going to bring my little palette over here. P for the pen tool. Let's go ahead and get in closer. And I'm going to outline this shape, right? So I'm going to click straight line from here to here, right? I've got straight lines for all these little points here. And I'm creating those lines. Now, I've come to a curve. Here's where it gets fun. All you need to do is look at your curve, find out where the curve begins, find out where the curve ends, and you're going to put a single point on either side. So we're traveling through, the curve begins here, we got this nice slick long curve which looks like it subsides right about here. What I'm going to do is this. Click and hold. Now, as I drag my cursor, what I'm doing is I'm tracing this shape. I'm literally tracing that shape in front of me until the back end falls in line. And I made a bit of more than I can chew. I'm going to go Control key and maybe bring it back. Oops. I did too many of these. There we go. Let's do this again. Take it right about there. Click and drag it. Trace the shape in front of me. See? Tracing it, and watch the back end falls right into place. Okay, I think I'm going to start here, and let's see if I can get away from clicking here. Looks like the curve is starting here. It looks like it's going to wrap around and end right about here, because we have another subtle little curve that's going to finish it up back here. Click and drag it, trace that shape in front of me. So it's a little tight in there, right? So it might be better if I do it this way. If I click and drag it, see how tight that is? That's because of this. The handlebars aren't flowing with the curve. If I hit the A key and get it to flow a little bit more with the curve like that. There we go. If we have a problem with it, holding down the Alt or Option key gives me the Convert Point tool by default. If I click this handle, that means we can start fresh. Come here, drag it, outline it. From here, the curve starts, it ends right about there. Click and hold, and it pretty much did it for me. I have a nice little curve over here. It ends right about there. Click and hold, and drag it, and outline the back end. Now notice the handlebar. If I come down here and put a point on the next straight edge here, look what happens. The curve is going to flow in the direction of that handlebar. And since the handlebar is coming far out, that means it's giving you a lot more slack. Giving off a lot more slack. So what I'm going to do is undo this one here and Alt, get rid of this one, click and release. Now look at the curves. Getting closer. Starts here, ends kind of right about there. Trace the curve in front of me, like I'm tracing with a pencil, and it falls right in place. Come to the other end, curve starts here, ends right about there. Click and drag it, trace it in front of you, and it falls right into place. Come up to here. I'm thinking probably I can get away with it right about there. So you want to be able to outline this in very, very few points, right? And that was a little bit too much there. All right, so you're getting a point there? All right, so the whole idea is tracing this, but finding where your curves are, one point in the beginning, one point in the end. I'm gonna pull this one back a little more here. Okay, click and, oops. I'm going to have to undo that one by getting rid of that one. Create that little curve there. See, keeping your handlebars flowing. I'm too far away. Flowing in a direction. So holding down the Control or Command key, which gives me my white arrow tool or direct selection tool by default. All right. So we come up to here, a nice little, oops, I forgot that I need to reconnect. Now what happened is I broke this here accidentally, playing around. If that happens, undo it, reselect the last point that reconnects it, straight line to here, curve here, ends here, oops, and drag it, all right? Another curve starts here, ends right about there, and drag it. Watch the handlebars. So they're flowing in the direction of your shape. Here, curve starts here, ends there. Drag it. It falls right into place. Come right around. Falls right into place. Come right around. Another curve ends right about there. And so that's what we're doing. Now, I can go ahead and finish this up and close it, but let's go on and give you a much more practical application of this. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and close out this file. Cool. Let's close him out. I was working on his portrait. And let's close out Gavin's portrait there. And close that one out. Alright, let's go on the bridge and look for something to play around with. So Guilford says why? Okay. So if there's anything other than true tangent, that's, I think Madonna has a question. He made a couple comments. They are tangents. In search of followers, prime viewers, come the big fellows. Okay, that's an advertisement. Just checking all the comments here. Okay, we're talking about the tangents. So there anything other than, if there's anything other than a true tangent, then the perfect circularity is broken. Why is that important? Well, I guess the best way to answer that, I guess you're talking about the flow. Let's go get something practically to work with, and let's answer that question that way, okay? All right, let's play. What have I got here? Ooh, we got some stuff here. Let's play this. I've got a simple one. Let's do a simple one, and then I'm going to answer your question directly with one with a lot more sophisticated curves on it, okay? So we'll start with a simple photograph for a practical application of all this stuff. Let's go ahead and open that up in Photoshop. Double click it. And obviously this needs some work. If we look at our photograph, it needs work. It needs work in terms of the contrast. And your whites are very blasé. I think there's a lot of detail and wonderful information in here that is not being brought out. Okay? Now, I can use a bunch of selection tools to select it. Or if I want a most accurate selection, I can use the pen tool. So, let's utilize the pen tool to select the stairs. All right? I'm going to undo that. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to hit this. And then we can also use the pen tool to select this subject up here. And the reason we want to do that is because whenever you're working with well, any photographic or any artistic information, you want all of your subject matter that you're seeing is being represented by to be on their own layers. Now, we shot this with a photographic camera. If we were doing digital painting, our hair can be on one layer, the face can be on another layer, the clothing can be on another layer. You can break it all up, right? So that you can apply all of Photoshop's commands and tools to every little aspect of your creative scene independently, which gives you, as the artist, complete digital control. And we're going to do the same thing here, or something similar here. I'm going to duplicate the layer, Command J. Okay. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little extra contrast. Then I'm going to add more detail in here. I'll start with a little extra contrast by giving this an adjustment layer of curves, as we can see here. Let me go get my path panel and pull it over to the side here so we can see them both at the same time. With this curves, I can come in here, you can see, look at the curves. You can see that there's no dark information in here, right? That's why it's so flat. A lot of your information is in the mid-tone area, nothing in the highlights, nothing in the shadows. So I'm going to do an initial contrast adjustment just to help it visually. Now, I'm going to add another adjustment layer. This adjustment layer is going to be another curves, and this adjustment layer I want to affect the stairs only. There is a layer blend mode technique that's going to give me a lot more detail in these highlight areas for the stairs. That blend mode in this case is going to be multiply. If I target multiply, look at that detail. that it brought out, right? By altering that one adjustment layer to a blend mode, look at that beautiful detail it brought out there. Of course, I can go into the curves of the multiplied curves adjustment layer and continue to make a little more adjustments like so. But look at what it did. It really brought out all that detail. And I want that detail to be given only to the stairs. So keep that in mind. All right, so I'm going to turn that off temporarily. Okay, let's use our pen tool. Come right over in here, and I want this precisely selected. So I'm getting close. I'm always working up close when I'm working with the pen tool. Control the space bar. Now I did something, I added another point there accidentally. So let's select that. Control should, alright, it's behaving kind of weird on me here. There we go. Bring it around to here. Bring it all the way up. And this is an easy one for demoing purposes because there's not a whole lot of edges for me to pay attention to. Come down the stairs. Now, I got a curve. It's a JPEG, so it's a little pixely, but nevertheless, it's a curve. Curve begins here, ends right about here. Go to where it ends, click and hold, trace the line in front of me coming straight down, and watch that back end just curve like it should. Now, click and release. Have a slight little curve here. Go to where curve begins, it ends right about here. Click and hold and drag, trace the line in front of you, and you're outlining that accurately. Now it's a straight line. There we go. To here. Pull this down a little bit. It comes straight down, straight on over, and we have another curve, right? Click and drag it to outline that curve. Straight down, another little curve, all the way over. Click and release. Click and release, another curve. Go to the opposite side of the curve where it subsides. And I was a little overzealous and make sure that's connected. Drag it down. Click and release. To the other side with a slight little curve here. Drag it slightly. Bring it on over. Click and release. Click and release. We're almost done. Straight down. Come down to here. I got this little lip here, right? So I'm going to do this and then do that. Alright, so we're trying to outline that little, we're trying to honor every little shape on this stair. Curve begins here on the lip of the stair. Ends there, but trace the shape coming straight down. There's another slight curve in here. There. See how the handlebar is flowing with the exact shape. It's basically outlining the shape. And you don't want to disrespect that. The handlebar should flow. All your handlebars will flow with the shape. Click and release. Click and drag. Get a slight little curve. Click and release. Another little curve here. Go to the opposite side of the curve where it ends. Click and hold and drag it straight down. Click and release. Click and drag to honor that curve there. Keeping your handlebars flowing with the shape. Click and release. Click and drag. So to see my handlebar, it's going to flow directly with the shape. And evidently, there we go. Click and hold and I want to make sure this is a little bit over here. There we go. Now click and drag. Yep, that one got disconnected. So what do I need to do? I'm going to get rid of it. Delete it. Control key down. Come back and get this. Release the control key. So I go back to the pen tool and just click right back on the last point that I had. All right. Now click and drag. A little pixelated in there. But I use JPEGs only to help me work faster when I'm doing presentations online. All right, almost done. Yep, we're almost done. Click and release, drag, click and release again. Let's get in closer. Click and release, and click and drag. Now, you're going to get really fast with this. When you get used to it, you're going to wonder how in the world you ever got along without working with paths. Or the pen tool. Click and release. And I want to make sure that I did close that. I'm going to undo that, by the way, because I'm not quite sure what I did. All right, let's go back and get my path. I got to go back to the path panel. Oh, what the hell did I do? Did I accidentally delete it? You got to be kidding me. All right, undo. There we go. All right, I'm going to take a look at this. It looks like it's closed. If you're not sure if it's closed or not, take a look at your path, your work path. If your shape is completely white and everything else around it is gray, that means you successfully made a closed path. Okay? All right, now all done. So once here, remember I want to add that, oops, not what I wanted to do. I want to back that up there. I want to add that adjustment layer, right, that curves. You see what I did? See what happened? So your curves adjustment now has a path for a mask instead of this standard layer mask, right? So if I come in here, take that mask and go to multiply, see it's only affecting the stairs. Is that making sense? All right, so that's a practical application of the pen tool for photography. And of course, I can come into the curves, make whatever adjustments I want, because if it's a little bit too rich in some of those shadows, I can bring that up and edit this photograph accordingly. Okay, so oops, I'm gonna turn that one off. This accident there. Now, what I'm going to do next, there we go, that's cool, is I can also do the same thing for the ring, right? But I think you guys are kind of, getting the point. And let's see. So, Jojo, did I answer your question? And now we can talk about some other creative ways to use this. So let's go get a photographic image. Let's have some more fun with this. I've got one here with the statue. And I'm thinking I'm gonna get one. Let's do that statue there. Okay. To save time, I can outline the statue accurately, and then I want to use the pen tool as an effect. Now let me show it to you as an effect first. Let's make Command J. Let's go over here to the pen tool once again. And I'm going to outline some type of an effect. I want to kind of, I don't like that one. Let's kind of go back and do it again. And bring it up like so. Bring it up around. Something like this. All right. We can stroke pass. But my goal here is to actually use a brush effect with this, which would be kind of fun. So I'm going to hit my B key for the brush tool, and I'm going to create an effect. Let's do this. Let's create a new document. I want to create a new brush. So new document, 5 by 5 inch. Make a new layer just for the heck of it. Go to my options for custom shapes, and I'm going to select the custom pen shape. So my custom vector tools. Once I target this, up here where the shapes are, I can get all types of custom shapes. Now, in 2020, they give you little shapes. You can see them here. Let me see if I can go to like a large thumbnail view. That's a little bit easier for you to see, right? You have flowers. You've got bolts. I really want some of the legacy shapes here. Let's see. Append default shapes. See, I want to bring in, I can import shapes. The pen default, let me see, if I click this, click OK, that's just the same thing, damn it. Alright, let's go over here to import shapes. And I don't have any on hand. I can save these shapes. I tell you, I'm going to make a shape. Let's make a star. Go to my pen tool. Make a star real quick. And what I'm going to do is, instead of a path, I want to create a shape. So my options bar, let's go to shape, and I believe the foreground color is kind of it's black, which is exactly what I want. Let's make a quick little star and close it. Okay, white arrow tool, it's getting close here. And the star doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to have points on it. Alright, go to my little direct selection tool, make some modifications to this. Okay, nothing has to be perfect because we can always come back and modify this. So that's good enough. Okay, I'm gonna hit my M key for my my select tool, right? Marquee tool. I will select the star. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to my edit menu and define my brush preset. And there I've just created a new brush from a vector shape. So I'm going to click OK, hit the B key for the brush, right? Now, where did it actually save this shape? Go back to my brushes, go to the options bar. And it's always the very last one that it saves. So I want to modify this shape a little bit. Anything as you already know, anything that's black is going to be defined as a brush, right? So let's go to our brush options here, our brush settings, and let's go play with this. Okay, I'm going to bring the paths back over and put it back up here into my layers, channels, and paths bar. And let's play this. So Command A, make a new layer. I'm going to turn this one off temporarily. So if I start to paint, okay, we're going to modify this. Brush settings, play with the spacing a little bit. I like to set my brush options for resizing my brush to the top button of my walking pen. So I'm going to go grab my walking pen properties here. As you can see, I'm going to select Photoshop as the program of choice to apply this to. Okay, I'm a little more heavy-handed, so I'm going to go a little bit more firmer on my tip field. And firmness, tip field has to do with the pressure that you like to work with when you're drawing. Alright, now let's come over here. That looks pretty good. Top button, here's my top button, bottom button. Bottom button is a right click. I like that. Let's go to the top button and use it for brush resize. So keyboard, modifier, right, Alt right and Alt left. So it's Alt right clicks. I'm on a PC. Alt right click over here. So keep in mind, this is one of the very few shortcuts that are different between Mac and PC. On a PC, it's Control and Option, left click and drag left to right, up and down. Here it's Alt right click, drag right to left to resize your brush. So once done, I can hold down that top button there while I'm hovering over the pad and drag it like so to resize it, right? All right, there's my brush. I want some nice little, like star effects. I want to use for my stroke. I've got everything selected. I said select all, and I'm working in a blank layer so that way I can just test my brush and hit delete on my keyboard. It's kind of like Etch-a-Sketch. Let's see. IB Wizard made a comment here, I think. Oh, I see. He's correcting somebody on there. Thank you, IB Wizard. All right, here we go. Now, I want to add some effects to this. So let's go over to the brush shape, and let's make the brush a little bigger so it's easier for you to see. And let's rotate the stars over the length of the stroke. In fact, I don't want to just rotate the stars. If you go back to brush tip shape, I've got the spacing, shape dynamics. Let's alter the shape over the length of the stroke, right? Let's add some variety to this. Okay, so I'm going to make it a nice small brush. Okay, adding some little bit of variety here. Alright, now let's go to scattering. Well, let's go back to shape dynamics. I forgot something here. So I'm altering the size over the length of the stroke. Let's alter also the angle so I can rotate these stars over the length of the stroke. Give them a different rotation. Now I'm going to go to scattering, and let's take let's play with the scattering. This is just all experimental stuff. So I'm going to bring this down. Once I apply a stroke, I'm going to just play with the stroke on my blank layer. I've got scatter, and I'm going to pull that. See the scattering? All right, I'm going to scatter it a little bit. Okay, not bad. I'm going to hit the delete on my keyboard. Let's see what more we can do. I'm just going to play with this here. I got the count, so I can add a whole bunch at one time. I have the count jitter, where I can alter how much is being spit out at one time over the length of the stroke to give it some unpredictability. Alright, looking at the scatter, I can scatter in both directions, X and Y. So if I click both directions, take a look at that. Now that even becomes more unpredictable. It's kind of the same way that we make these smoke brushes. I think what I like to do next is to get into, now I can add textures to these. Let's go play with textures. Let me see what they actually do. I can add some texture, and here are your textures up here at the top. You can select any texture you want. You can go to trees, right? I'm going to just see how it changes the kind of look and feel of the stars. If I go to something like under the texture, let's go over here. Let's try grass. Let's grab some grass. And it's just an experimentation thing. I may like it, I may not. Let's go down and see what water does, just out of curiosity. Not too crazy about the texture just yet. Let's turn this off. Let's go to dual brush. Dual brush I often like. So it's taking another brush, blending it with the one that you have now to kind of give you a different visual effect. How about if we grab that one there? Yeah, that does something a little different. Let's try a different one. Let's try this one here. Okay, and going on for more experimentation. Oh, we got some star brushes here, right there. Let's see what these do. Oh yeah, I like that. That's bringing it up quite nicely. Now, I could apply some transfer, which allows me to print, to control the opacity. I don't want to do that just yet for this particular example. Now, I'm going to change the color, the foreground and background color. So red here. Let's go with something like a green for the background color. I'm just, click on the background color, go green. Alright, so right now we're painting with that red color. Let's see what happens if I go over to color dynamics. Apply per tip. And if I pull this slider over, I can start to get some various types of color interactions as I pull the slider on over. Alright, so what we do is we're creating an effects brush. That is it. That we're going to apply to a stroke. Let's go ahead and turn this one off. And the brush has got to be established first. So color dynamics. Now we got saturation and we got hue. So let's play with the hue over the length of the stroke, right? Let's play with saturation. Okay. And I think now here's one with pose. I don't think this is gonna help us very well, but I'll make you aware of it. Pose, if it is how you have the brush tilted. So if you tilt the brush, the actual brush that you create is going to change shape or change its character. It's going to stretch and tilt and so forth. Let's see if it's going to work here for this brush. So brush pose. Let's see. I'm not seeing much of a change here. Let's see, override. Let me see if I tilt this. Alright, something's happening, but it's very, very subtle. 100% pressure. Let me come back to that one. So I know I've used this quite a bit. I've used it all the time, but for some reason I'm getting a little different effect here than what I'm expecting to see. Alright, so there's a transfer. Transfers opacity. I'm not going to use that just yet, and you'll see why. Alright, let's go ahead and turn this off. Let's go play with this on the photograph. I've got the brush. Let's save the brush. Bring this smaller. Yeah, that's what I want. I may want to go to scattering. Or actually, better yet, if I go to my brush tip shape, let's pull it together a little tighter. There we go. That's better. I might bring it in just even a little bit tighter. Alright. Now I'm looking over here to the big monitor, which is what's being recorded. There we go. Okay. Alright, now from here, I've got the brush that I want. So, dropless, new brush preset, save it. Capture size. I choose not to use the include tool set because that means it's only going to save these settings I've done just for this one brush. Right? I prefer to have this brush available to all my brushes on Adobe's brush panel. So I'm going to just check the capture brush size only. Leave that one unchecked. All right, click OK. Okay, there's my brush. What can I do with this? I mean, I can do some painting over it. I can change the blend mode up here. Maybe go to something like screen, and you start to get a whole nother effect here. I can go for the blend mode to something like overlay. Just keep in mind, or even go to, let's see what color dodge does. Yeah, color dodge brightens up that center. Okay. All right. So I will go back to normal. There's my brush. I'm going to save it one more time just to, because I played around just a little bit. There we go. There it is. So right click with the brush here, brings up your dialog box, and there's your brush. Now let's go back to our pen tool. I'm going to close this one out. Say don't save. Boy, time flies. And I want this brush, I want this brush to actually travel right along the stroke of this pen. I'm going to make a new layer. And what you're going to do is you have to have that brush selected, which I do. And with the brush selected, you can decide how big you want it by putting the brush next to your line and just resizing your brush accordingly to get the size that you want to see on your photograph. Okay, so the brush is targeted. All right, we're seeing it. We're seeing it here. If I start to draw on here, you can see the effects. I might consider, what if we change the layer blend mode here? If we go to screen or color dodge, overlay, let's see what we're getting here. If we did this, that vivid color, linear light, is kind of nice. So let's go to linear light on this one. Okay. All right, so I'm going to undo that one. Just Command A, select all on the layer, hit the delete key, and oops, I hope I didn't delete my path. I bet you I did. I did it. I got to go back. There we go. Found my path. It's back. And I want to make sure the path is turned off, and then go to my layer, but select all turned on. Command A, and then delete. So I deleted what's on the layer, and I did not delete my path. Let's go over here to Command 0, bring it back down. So here's my path that's outlined here. So let's go ahead and target the path, hit the A key on the keyboard. Here it's a good idea to go to the direct selection tool, not direct selection, but the path selection tool, which is the black arrow, and then I can just click on the path, and we can see the path is highlighted. So at this point, I want to use my brush. Hit the B key for the brush. That's about, we'll say that's about the size that I want. And then all you need to do at this point is go to your path panel here and go to the bottom of your path panel, and the second one over is stroke, right? It's stroke your path. So if I click this one here, oops, I clicked the wrong one. So let's go back and get our path. Command D. So the path is highlighted. And just to make sure, so we all can see the points on there. And it's the second one over. I hit the third one over, so it made a selection from that path. All right. If I go to the second one over and click it, all right, let's see what's happening now. Interesting. It's not happening. Why? Is it not happening? I've only done this a million times. All right, so there's my layer. Here is my path. Path is targeted. Outline the path. Oh, wait a minute. Hit the B key for the brush. Outline it. There we go. All right, that's what I did. See, you have to have the brush targeted. All right, the brush is not targeted, it's not going to happen. All right, and if I can hit it several times, and it'll keep overlaying it. I can go over to my layer effects, double click on the right hand side of the layer, and we can start adding things like maybe like an outer glow or something, which is too strong. It's in screen blend mode. Let's go hit the outer glow option. That's overlay. I don't want that one. I want outer glow, which is where are you? Am I passing it up here? Color overlay, outer glow. There it is, right there in front of me. Okay, there we go. All right. Play around with the opacity, the outer glow. Let's bring in the sizing a little bit. Play with that spread. And you just kind of like just screwing around and seeing what you can do with it with an effect of some sort. Of course, we can go to an inner glow if we want to. That we do not want to be black. We want this to be probably white or yellow. And play with the distancing. Let's see what we can put aside. So it's in multiply blend mode, so it's not going to work. So we're going to have to go to like a screen there. Okay. It's set to these blend mode settings because I was playing with it by default in another program. So we can play around with these effects. If I go to the scattering, in fact, let's go ahead and do this again. Let's change the brush up a little bit. So there is one layer. All this is applied to that blank layer. If I put in a brand new blank layer, turn that one off, hitting my B key, that's the brush is selected. Go over here to my scattering and play around with the scattering a little bit more. New brush preset, okay? And with the brush targeted with a new layer selected, go to my path panel, and I should be able to stroke that there, right? So you can make a fire brush, you can make smoke brush, get smoke effects, and create these series of paths coming up and around your subject. So if I wanted to make it look like I'm going around the subject a little bit, let's see. Probably on that layer, just give it a layer mask, right? Hit the B key for the brush, of course, right click. This time I want my soft edge brush. Paint with black, right? And let's bring that down. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn off this path. Go to the path panel, click the blank area there. All right, so that comes around, and then it goes behind her, comes up around in front of her. All right, and of course we can start getting into playing around with blend modes. Even we can experiment with even more blend modes. So this is a normal blend mode layer. Just come around and see what we're getting. I like that. I like that color dodge. There we go. All right, I like the color dodge. We can grab that. Let's see, that path one more time, and we can do it again. So this time, go get the same brush. Actually, we'll make the brush bigger and see what it does. So the brush is larger because it was much smaller before. Right click. Let's go to this one here, but it went back to the same size. So I'm gonna go ahead and enlarge the brush size considerably and see what happens. There's my path is targeted. There we go. Okay, so this is just to give you ideas. I created, let's see, let me go back to my layers. There we go. So you're gonna have to edit the mask to get the effect that the stars are coming from behind it. All right. So right click, get that little soft little brush there, paint with black. All right, and then we can come in here and edit this accordingly. You guys are getting the point. There was something else I wanted to show you, but I can't remember what it was. Let's see. Let's turn this off and on. So this is going behind it. This is going in front of us. We want to take this out. Hit the X key, painting with white. So this is why I prefer to use the pen tool to select the sculpture out, so that the sculpture is on its own layer. Then it makes it a lot easier to edit this. You can make a selection around her. In fact, here, we'll do it the easy way. Let's turn this off temporarily. Go to my subject matter here. I'll duplicate that layer. Okay. And then come over here to the quick selection tool. And up here in the option, you have select subject. Photoshop should see the subject and do it for me automatically. Click it. Sit back and relax, and there it did it for me. Now I can put the statue in its own layer. So Command J, right? Turn all the rest off. Now she's on her own layers. It's that simple. Now we can turn back on our stars. And I tell you what, let's go ahead and fill that mask with white and just start fresh. Alt backspace. So we've got the stars going behind the leg, then in front of the body, right? So increase the size, hit the X key, paint black. Now, here's where it becomes fun. Let's select, right now we want to edit on her body, so, and only her body. So let's go Command click on this statue on a blank layer. That'll make the marching ants all around her body for me. So now I'm only going to edit within her body. That was an accident. I didn't mean to do that. So B key, and see, I can be sloppy now because she's selected. It's going behind the statue. Then it comes up in front of the statue and then goes behind the statue. And then goes behind the statue. I can be sloppy because she's selected. Nothing outside the body of the statue is going to be touched. Goes behind the statue and then comes in front of the statue. Okay. And of course you can turn on your background again, right? And if you want to, you can bring in another layer. This layer could be like a blend mode of color dodge. Let's change the colors. Maybe we'll go to something. I got green in there already, right? So that's how about magenta for the foreground, and go with something like yellow for the background, and right click, go get our star. The selection's still on. We're on a brand new layer. I only want to affect some of these areas on her body. See? And what I didn't like about this is I need to go outside the body. So Command D to get rid of the selection and make it feel like there's a little hot energy coming all around here. All right, and then coming over to here, a little bit of energy coming all through there, right? Making the brush smaller, always resizing that brush. Bring it around. Okay, and then down over here. Yeah, just I want to resize that brush accurately. There we go. Just kind of watching this here. Let's see if I make a new layer alter that to overlay, and let's inverse the colors. So hit the X key on the keyboard. There we go. Let's see what happens. Gives it a different feel. You guys get the point. All right. So think about creating like a really great cloud brush, right? And then you create a whole series of splines using your pen tool, and you can apply a different smoke effect to every single spline. So in this example, I can have a spline that does this around her body, do another one that goes outside around or even wider around her body, and another one is probably some small ones just coming up around her feet, and each one has a different smoke brush pushing them all up in the air. And then of course when you're done, you can use your smudge brush or whatever to actually create the more foggier effects. Is that helpful? It's amazing I'm not getting any questions. Am I that good? You should see people chatting like crazy in here. Must be a hot day. Okay. All right. So at the end of every meeting, I do a giveaway. I'm going to give away one of my 5-week beginning level Photoshop classes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up, let me go to my notepad here. I'm going to type into this notepad a number from 1 to 100. Okay? I've already done it. Now I want everybody to type in a number from 1 to 100. Whoever gets closest to my number wins the 5-week class, to the beginning Photoshop class that's starting this month, end of this month. So in about a couple of weeks. So go ahead and drop your number into the chat box now. And I'm going to watch it. I'm not seeing any numbers. We got over 20-something people here. There are no numbers. There they come. It's a little bit of a delay. So the Photoshop class is, of course, online. It's completely interactive. So with your headset, we'll be able to talk to one another. You'll be able to talk to the other students. You'll see my screen. We can switch over to show your screen if you have any problems. So it's this whole live and interactive type of a thing going. Yeah, it looks like Twitch is being slow today. Everybody's coming in. Stop typing more stuff in there, Mandala. We're doing a drawing right now. From 1 to 100. All right, I'll give you another minute. Type in from 1 to 100. It's probably that most of you are already a lot more advanced than beginning level, so. But those classes are coming up soon. I still have to set up the dates for that. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to give you my number. Let me go find my little browser here. Where's my notepad? Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm going to... There we go. There we go. All right, so I'm bringing it over now. There's my number. And so who's the winner here? Is it Mackinsense? Oh, it's Mac Nonsense. So you get the win. You get the winner. You get to be the winner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type in my email address here in the chat box. Send me an email telling me that you are the winner. And there you go. Send me an email telling me that you are the winner, and then what I'll do is I'll get you onto the mailing list and give you all the details for the class. Cool. So was this helpful? I'm going to look at comments here. Okay. Thank you so much, Jason. And also David for helping moderate, keep an eye on things. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So tomorrow, we're going to have our 3D stream, the Lightwave users group. Lightwave 3D user group, same time, 10 to 1. Boy, it's hot out here in San Diego. And really hot here in the house. Like practically sweating. It's probably a lot cooler outside than it is in my room. So tomorrow, same time, same place, Lightwave users group. And I look forward to seeing everybody here. So, Mac Nonsense, don't forget to send me an email. Let me know you're the winner, so we'll put you on the list. Fantastic. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording.